Hey guys, I'm back here on Soak It Up. My name is Maria Zepeda, and today I'm here with Joshua Brandstetter, and we're going to talk about his trip to Africa. How long were you out in Africa, Josh?
I was out there just about 3 months. That was as long as I could be out there in one visit. So,
And you were training to be a safari guide.
um, yeah, I'm at the beginning stages of that training, but yeah,
Were you training for walking tours or vehicle tours?
no, not walking tours. So when you want to train to be a trails guide, which is what you would call it if you're going to be giving walking tours, you've got a lot more extensive training to go through. You have to have a lot of experience out there
Mm,
with trained qualified guides, and it's a much more advanced level of guiding. So you definitely start
yeah.
in vehicle.
Okay, so did you go along on any vehicle tours as like part of your training?
Yeah, absolutely. They took uh, volunteers
Oh yeah, yeah.
out in vehicles on drives pretty much every day where I was, and we went out all the time. I also just went out with my instructor and my classmates, and we would study and stuff, and then we would kind of go through the motions of guiding. But I got to
Okay.
witness people doing the guiding process when I would go sometimes out with the volunteers.
How often did you get to go out yourself with those, like on the vehicle tours as a volunteer?
Um, so I wasn't actually a volunteer. I was a
Okay.
I was a student,
Okay,
and
yeah,
so there were a few of us taking the course there. It was a 2 month course. So 2 of the months I was there was the course,
yeah.
and we would go out on drives with our instructor Vaughn. Most days we would go out on at least one drive,
Okay,
and
yeah.
then sometimes I would jump in and kind of just go along for the ride
hmm
when the employees or the interns there would be taking the volunteers out.
And how was the course? Like, how rigorous was the training?
Um, it depends on what part of the course. Definitely, there's a couple of aspects of it. There was, I guess you would say, a practical part of the training, and then there was a theoretical
Yeah.
part. So the theoretical part's on paper, and
hmm
both of them had their own challenges.
Yeah.
Probably the most challenging thing was to be prepared to actually take people out on drives and walk them through how nature works and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and the ecosystem out there, because then you get an assessment where you actually take people out on a drive,
hmm
and you have an assessor come with you, and he watches how you guide and your knowledge level and your guiding ability, and decides whether or not you are at that moment qualified to get FAGASA level one
Okay.
guiding certificate. And then
Okay.
for the theoretical aspect of it, it was just a big paper test. That was a lot of hard studying up as well, but we definitely have more preparation time for that.
hmm
We that took a bit more. We finished the practical aspect and then continued on studying for the paper. I
Okay.
mean, we were studying and working most of the day every day, so it was challenging. But I mean, you're in the middle of Africa, and it was amazing.
Yeah. How long did it take before you did go out there and get assessed?
That was like a little bit after the first month, about a month,
Okay,
a
so
little
about a
over a
month into it,
month.
a little month.
We go
Yeah.
out there and we go and do our little drive and guide some people and show our ability to do that. And then the rest of the time we spent continuing our studies for the paper test.
What kind of stuff was on the paper test?
What kind of stuff was on the paper test?
Yeah.
Questions about like the toughest stuff for me, and I mean I've been home for a little bit, so I'm already rusty, but I have to
hmm
sure that up. But the toughest stuff was probably like questions about the weather and the environment and how that works, and the
Wow, yeah.
just kind of going back to high school and
hmm
talking about the geology and how the geology affects the soils and how the soils affect the animals. But it's mostly base level questions and just shoring up your understanding of all around the environment and the animals
hmm
there. They had questions about the size of the animals or their type of
Wow.
reproduction. It was kind of like going back to high school.
Just learning everything about the land, the animals. What was your favorite thing to learn?
Oh, just any of the details about the animals for sure. Just like the details about the animals' lifespans and their methods of reproduction and the food that they ate and just how they live all around, and then the interconnectedness of all that with the other animals and the environment. So the ecology of it
Hmm.
was fascinating to me because I like to see how the environment interacts with each other. I love animals, and I love
Yeah.
anything that revolves around them.
Yeah. What was your favorite like part of just like the whole thing? Like
My
the whole
favorite part,
experience out there?
I had a couple probably. One of them is definitely so. Sometimes we did get to go out on walks, and you
Hmm.
get to walk out and track some animals, and you follow these tracks or signs, and every once in a while, you're going to get an on foot up close experience
Yeah.
with any kind. They could be elephants down the trail or something, and you obviously you're following a professional.
Yeah.
So that was one, and the other one is just the sounds. Probably, I mean, you sleep outside in a tent
Yeah.
and you hear lions and elephants.
Yeah,
I
I
love that.
remember we have like this group chat and you sent a voice memo
Hmm.
of what was it, lions?
It was that was my favorite one. I sent a few, but the lion, it was this really loud lion roar. I realized
It
after
like sounded like it was right next to you. We're
it's
like
probably like a mile away, but it was
probably.
loud.
It was loud. And
So
like it sounded like that part in the movies where it's like a dinosaur is like creeping up right behind the person. It's like the height of the movie, the most like intense part. That's like literally what it sounded like. And I never really thought about like what they probably got those sounds from, but they probably use lion roars for like dinosaur sounds in
yeah, they have to
movies.
base it off of something,
Yeah,
right? So it's gonna be
because
like a
that's
roar from
as like an
some living
example, that's
animal.
literally what it sounded like.
I
But
mean, yeah.
what was like the scariest thing?
Um, One thing that kind of just got into my head a little bit, not that it's just conceptually kind of a frightening thought, is walking through the grass and you're like, obviously snakes are dangerous,
Yeah.
scorpions are dangerous. I don't know. I feel sometimes more intimidated by a scorpion than a lion, but they're both.
So the smaller things scared you more.
Yeah, there was also one time when we were tracking a lioness and we got kind of close and
What?
she kind of just warned us a little bit
Oh my gosh.
with just a little tiny growl roar and a little bit of physical warning, just standing up. But that being close on foot to elephants definitely was
Mm,
intimidating. Being close on foot to 20 feet away from a rhinoceros, and we're just watching it, and you can tell like it hears us, but maybe it doesn't smell us because of the direction of the wind. I mean, that thing can.
wow.
You have to understand the nature of the animal,
Hmm.
and not like I was guiding or anything,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
the people who are guiding, they need to be understanding the nature of the animal because if it wants to, it could turn and just trample you. So
yeah.
you have to be considering what it's thinking.
That's scary. Are there any animals that you didn't see that you would have wanted to?
I don't think I remember seeing a lot of hyena. Interestingly,
Oh,
I really like hyena. I think they're fascinating, strange, interesting animals. Um, I would have loved to have seen them. I saw their tracks everywhere, but for some reason they just were really good at avoiding the people and not
yeah,
being spotted or seen
yeah.
or just being too close. We get to see wild
Probably
dogs.
have more to hide into because they're smaller than a lot of the other animals out there,
Yeah,
I feel like.
yeah. It also just depends on, I guess, the animal's experiences. In some areas, they're less afraid of humans, and you can see them more easily. And in some
Okay.
areas, they're not. I mean, so we saw wild dogs a couple of times. Um, saw some other smaller animals, and some animals are more active at night, so you see them less as well. So a lot of like smaller cats and stuff didn't really see those very much.
Yeah. I feel like seeing like the elephants would be cool. Just being like up close to them. Like I've seen them in a zoo, but like you sent a lot of videos of elephants that were like right next to you. Was that like you
Yeah,
said that was
so
one of the scarier parts though?
well, yeah, we were on the reserve we were on had just a really fantastic elephant population. So we saw them all the time. There was also a little watering hole um, that was kept filled nearby where the camp was, not too near, but nearby where the camp was, and so we would see them out in the open field
Hmm.
getting drinks almost
Probably saw a lot of
almost daily.
animals like
Yeah, yeah.
being right next to the watering hole.
That kind
Yeah.
of helped and probably was strategic for observation purposes.
Hmm.
But they were out there almost daily. Giraffe were out there almost daily.
Wow.
Wildebeest and zebra were definitely out there daily, so you could just see them. You could walk out. That was another one of my favorite parts. Is get up in the morning, get tea, some breakfast, and walk out and just look at whatever happens to be out there this morning. There was this perch out there where you could climb up and stand on this wooden perch, 10 feet in the air, or take a seat, and I would sit up there and read sometimes. And one
Wow.
morning I went up there and did it. And there's this hippopotamus because it was a cloudy day, and they don't like to be out in the sun and to dry out and burn their skin or whatever. But it was a nice cloudy day, and he was out in the field in the morning, and that was one of my favorite parts of it, to just
Wow.
see that guy walking around. He didn't stick around for
I
long.
feel like the hippo would be the scary part, but you weren't
Hmm.
like close to him.
No, no, he's
Okay.
he's a good distance away. I was just watching him through my binoculars.
Yeah, and I know you did a lot of like in your training and everything, you learned how to track different animals.
Hmm.
You learned how to like recognize footprints and like how was all of that like learning all their different footprints and memorizing all that kind of stuff?
That might have been the hardest part.
That might have been the hardest
That
part.
Yeah, that might have been the hardest part. Just tracking is a really challenging, and it wasn't like an all out tracking uh, course either. There were a lot of
Yeah.
things you had to put into play because you have to be able to understand and have a good in depth knowledge about the animals and the environment over
Yeah.
there. But tracking is a really good aspect to guiding, especially if you're ever going to move up to becoming a trails guide and do stuff on foot. But it helps you to understand what has been taking place in a certain area. It helps
Yeah.
you to just have a better perspective as opposed to just looking at what you can see with the naked eye directly. It gives
Mhm.
a story, and so it's really an awesome part of being able to guide. But it's not like we went out there and we were tracking 24/7. So
So
it
that was
was
just one aspect
it
of
was
it.
just one aspect, but it was definitely challenging. Tracking is
Yeah.
just it's just repetition and memorization generally. You look at these tracks and you start to learn. This animal has feet that tilt in this direction as opposed to
Mm.
this direction, but in every way they
Yeah.
look exactly the same on their tracks otherwise. And you just go through it over and over and over again. One of my favorite parts too, though, because
Yeah.
it gets you down on the ground, up close and personal with the animal's life.
Yeah. Did you learn how to recognize, or at least kind of how to recognize how recent the footprint was?
Yeah, there are different ways to do that depending on where they are. I mean, it was a kind of a sandy environment where we are, so if you look at it and there's some debris and it's like you can see a hint of a track, but some sand's blown over it, that's going to be an indication that it's older.
Hmm.
Or if there's say, this is a really cool thing that I would see our instructor or somebody else who's really knowledgeable do sometimes.
Yeah.
It wouldn't pop into my head right away, but you'd see a track and be like, oh, it looks like a nice track because maybe it wasn't windy or it stepped into some nice soft soil and it stayed there for a while. Like it must have
Yeah.
been from a couple of hours ago. But then there's this nocturnal animal track around here as well, and say it's 4 in the afternoon and there's this animal hasn't been out and about since last night or something, and its track kind of overlaps or is
Yeah.
slightly overtops some of the other tracks. Clearly, those tracks that you thought were new are older than the nocturnal animals tracks. So if you can link it to other aspects of the tracking that take you back to a different time, it gives you a better understanding of the timeline of the tracks. So
Yeah. That all makes sense. Like I feel like that part is kind of easy to understand.
yeah,
Like
it's
learning the different tracks and like all the different animals, I feel like would be like very difficult.
it's like learning the alphabet, kind of. You
Yeah.
know, you're just learning it through repetition, over
Hmm.
and over and over again.
Yeah, which I feel like is the best way to learn most things is just repetition. But you even learned how to like recognize different animals from like their feces and stuff, right? Was that like how or
certain
were you
ones are
able to do that or
Certain
how
ones are
difficult was
easy,
it?
certain ones are not.
Okay.
A lot of animals have really similar dung or scat, but some of them have very distinct ones. Elephant, you really can't miss. The only thing that's going to look like elephant most of the time is going to be like a rhinoceros. But an elephant
Yeah.
it's a mixed feeder, so it'll have some grass in there, and I'll have some twigs and leaves in there, and they just kind of eat everything. So you
Wow.
can tell by what's in the poop. And then the rhinoceros, it depends on what type of rhinoceros, what they were eating, and then obviously a carnivore is going to look different. If it's new, it's going to
Yeah.
smell different.
It's gross.
But then when it comes to the nitty gritty details of a lot of the smaller animals, it starts to get a little similar. Zebra just looks like horse, so that helps.
Yeah. I feel like zebras are pretty much the same as horse. Like
Yeah,
They're a
they're
little
very
smaller,
closely
aren't they?
related.
Are they
Smaller.
smaller?
They're more like a donkey.
Yeah, yeah, more
Yeah.
like a donkey. Um, do you know how many species of animal you learned about,
No.
or could you put like in a?
No, no, no. I mean dozens and dozens,
Yeah, I'm
but also
sure.
like a lot of them. I just got a little bit of an understanding, and then a lot of
Yeah,
them, I got a lot more in depth of an understanding. It also kind of has to do with which ones pique my interest. Some of them you delve in a little bit more.
that's true.
Elephants have a really cool, social structure, and
Yeah, I feel like the elephants would interest me. Elephants are really smart too.
elephants are very smart. They have really strong relationships. They're very cool animals. Buffalo are very fascinating too. Hyenas are weird, so those are interesting. And then all the cats are just fascinating to everybody. And then there are the more
Yeah,
somewhat obscure animals, and some people just kind of cling to those.
yeah.
One of my classmates, he loved. I mean, it's not that obscure. The honey badger. He really, really, really loved the honey badger, and they're not that common of a sight around there. But he was definitely well researched. He had their tracks down. He sketched them out dozens of times. Probably knew
Wow.
exactly what they looked like. But then we only saw a honey badger one time, and I think he was like one of the only people on the vehicle who just missed it. So he was really
Oh
bummed.
no,
Yeah,
that's terrible. That
yeah,
sucks. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That sucks. He's like the only one that didn't see it, and he's the one that would have.
yeah, yeah. We rubbed it in a little bit.
Oh, you mean.
It's okay. He'll see more. He lives
Yeah,
out there.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So he'll have more chances. You're going back out there too, though.
Yep. Yep.
What are you most excited for going back out there?
Um, for one, it's just being around wildlife. I mean, we're around wildlife around here, but you really throw yourself into the wild when you're going to go stay at a camp out there.
Oh yeah.
That's one of my favorite things. The other one of my favorite things, and it's a little bit of a different uh, kind of an answer, is I just like when you go out there and you have a focus. Either you're taking a course, or you're going out there to volunteer, like some of the volunteers or something. It gives you a single mindedness to where you have a very specific purpose. So I'm trying to pursue a career
Mm-hmm.
of being a nature guide because I want to be around wildlife and I
Yeah.
want to interact with it and I want to learn about it and I just appreciate everything about God's creation and getting
Mm-hmm.
close to it. But
Yeah.
then when you're here at home, you have a lot of great things and I miss my family when I'm out there and a lot of the amenities that I have access to and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But life is just distracting.
Yeah.
And to be out there and to just be back on the single-minded
Yeah.
path.
I feel like it kind of isolates you and kind of gives you more of a chance to think.
Hmm.
Kind of. It's not so much of a fast pace, maybe, and you
Yeah.
feel maybe more direct. I don't know if I'm right in like all that.
Yeah, yeah, even if you're busy,
More direct on your path and what you're doing and everything.
yeah, even if you're busy and you're doing a lot,
You know
you know exactly
what
what
your
you're
goal
doing,
is.
you know why you're doing it, and you know what you're going for.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the day-to-day um,
Yeah.
distractions, and you're working here and you're going here, and then you want to work on your passion, but you've got things pulling at you from every direction. At least in my experience, that wasn't as strong.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
one of my favorite things.
Yeah. I feel like definitely that makes sense. Definitely. Are you excited for that flight again?
That's a big that's a big
How
part of it.
was the flight the first time? That's the longest flight you've ever
I went
had.
on like several different like 11, 12 hour flights. I went up to Ethiopia, down to South Africa, up to Turkey, over to New York, just all over the place. And
Jeez.
I was trying not to spend all the money in the world on flying, so that
Yeah.
it's got me layovers everywhere. I mean, it gives you, it's like a sample board of cultures all over the world, which was
Yeah.
pretty cool. You're jumping all over the place and experiencing so many different things, different airports. Istanbul has a beautiful, beautiful airport.
Did you get to see like outside of the airports at all at any of these places,
I
or
I was
were
in
the layovers?
Johannesburg. I was in Johannesburg for 7, 8. It might have been longer than that
Wow.
hours, and I didn't spend the whole time in the airport. I mean, I walked outside. I was still at the airport because they're not usually right beside anything.
Yeah.
So it was mostly airport experience, but even then you get to see, different people
Mm-hmm.
when you land somewhere, different languages you're hearing around you, different just behaviors and stuff. Um, and also everything just looks different. It was really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. How difficult was it to adjust to like the time zone once you finally got to Africa?
The flight was literally, or the travel time was so long that my whole day and night got so wonky and mixed
It
up
didn't
that by the
matter
time I
anyway.
arrived, all that I knew was that when it's light, I'm awake, and when it's dark, I want to go back to sleep and get some rest. And then I guess that's a good way to throw yourself in, exhaust yourself. To doesn't matter what time night is, you want to sleep, and
Yeah,
then you
so
adjust.
even if like it was just so messed up, it wouldn't have mattered what difference the time
Exactly.
was
I mean,
at.
you stay awake for most of the time for like an entire day or more, and then uh, just go somewhere and go to sleep, and then you settle into
Uh,
that time zone. I feel like.
I can't imagine being like in airports for that long. I've only done like 5 hour flight. I think it's like the longest flight I've ever done, which is not too bad.
Yeah, but I mean, so your flights are in the states, and
Yeah,
you can get some really nice flights in the states, but you can get some really crappy flights when you
yeah,
fly overseas.
that's
Generally,
true.
uh, it wasn't bad because the planes were actually pretty nice. They feed you on the plane. You're on
How?
there, and
Yeah.
you can just relax. They give you little pillows, and it wasn't
So
bad.
they're probably more little fancier than the
I
just.
mean, if you get like first class seats or
Well,
really
sure.
nice
What
flights,
did you have?
just the
Just
whatever's the lowest I can
the
get.
regular one?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But even then, you're not stuck in a little seat like this where you're touching the guy to your left and the person to
The
your
seats are
right.
bigger.
The seats are bigger.
Oh,
You
that's
got
nice.
more leg room. Have a better
Yeah,
table in front of you.
yeah.
Nice little entertainment system.
That is
Good
nice.
spot to take a nap.
Yeah. So, what is your goal? Are you working towards being a walking guide?
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
walking for sure.
I definitely. I'd like to take it even farther than that. I want to be a trails guide. That's going to take a lot of
Okay.
experience. But to me, it's just the nittier, grittier, closer that I get to the wild and the wildlife and the wilderness and just experiencing it and getting hands-on experience with it,
Yeah.
the better to me. So walking around, I would like to, and I've pursued this a little bit. I'd like to go out and take an aquatic side to things too, to where
Oh wow.
I can go out and uh, take people into the ocean
Ooh,
as well. So that's just a different step away. But scuba
that's
diving is
very
another passion of mine. So mix them up.
yeah.
That would be my
And you
objective.
have some experience in scuba diving too, so you have like
A little
at
bit.
least the beginning steps
I've
a
scrubbed a
little.
lot of boats. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, good luck with all of that. I'm excited to hear about your next trip and everything and see
I'll
what
tell
the
you about
future
it.
has.
I'll tell you
Yeah.
about it. I'll come back with an accent, and then we can talk again.
An accent, yeah. You had a little bit of an accent when
I
you
know.
got
I'm
back.
actually really bummed that it faded.
Little bit, yeah, it faded. It's gone. I can't hear it at all anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, I have
Talk
to
some
go
more.
out there and get some more. I have to go out there and get some more experience from the.
Yeah, I think you're definitely pretty good at the accent. Like being
I don't
out
know.
there for a few months probably helped with that. But yeah,
I
I
don't know.
think it
I
faded.
threw that out there. I don't know how legit that was.
Yeah. You did have a little bit of one though, because I remember talking to you on the phone and it was like, you have like a little bit of an accent. But yeah,
I liked it. I liked it. I'll get it back.
yeah. Well, we're excited for that. So, everyone, like down below, comment what you think, and subscribe. And we'll see you all later.